Maybe you think you can save me. Will you love me? Take care of me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought.
Word to the wise, to video game developers. I'm sure you all mean well, but when you try and reduce the sexuality of a female character in a video game, try not to overcorrect and do it to a character whose sexualization is an integral part of the narrative. Also, if you get something that fundamental and obvious wrong, how the fuck are you gonna handle any of the complex themes in Silent Hill 2? Anyway, that's the least of... No, it's not the least of what we'll be complaining about. Actually, it's part and parcel of what we're complaining about. Oh dear, Konami and Bloober Team. Oh dear.
Hit the lever!
Wrong lever!
All the news that's made you fit to say fuck Konami, this is fuck Konami news.
Right, shut your shitting mouths. I want to complain about the Silent Hill 2 remake again. This past week, Sony had one of its little state of play show and tell presentations, and there was some good stuff on display. Astro of Astro's Playroom, aka the best tech demo of all time, is getting his own video game. We've got ourselves a new Monster Hunter coming, and VR is already being forgotten by Sony, which I find funny. Sorry, I know it's got its fans, but I can't wait to see the back of prohibitive tech full of such obviously shitty games. You can actually tell something is a VR game with one look at a trailer. They all have this shared innate wonky style to them, and it's distinctly unappealing. You know, if you like VR, more power to you. It's just, some of us have migraines and eye strain up the wazoo, so, you know, if I can't enjoy it, fuck y'all. Anyway, the shitheads at Konami were on hand with a lot of Silent Hill 2 Remake to show off, and I mean a lot. The hugely revealing amount of gameplay coupled with promotional material stressing just how faithful the remake is seems to suggest Konami is well aware people are skeptical of Bloober Team's involvement and want to assure us that Bloober isn't going to bloober all over it. I find that bit entertaining. It was, in fact, the best part of the presentation. I can't say enough bad things about Bloober Team, as evidenced by the fact I've taken regular shots at them and did an entire video where I tried and failed to say enough bad things about them. In fact, rather than retread my every problem with Bloober Team, let's revisit it with a quick look back at that video, lest I piss myself off too much about their hack fuckery. I have plenty else to be pissed off with when it comes to this thing. Hackneyed writing, fumbling of themes, and cliche-riddled horror design. This corridor goes on forever until you turn around and see a door is suddenly behind you. Bloober Team's horror output is tropey, hokey, and often indistinguishable from the laziest horror efforts squirted daily onto Steam. At worst, the studio is forever fumbling its ill-advised attempts at tackling themes of mental illness, abuse, and trauma. To call the studio's uneducated narrative missteps problematic is to truly undersell how atrocious its writing can be. Its entire premise is that traumatized people inevitably traumatize others in turn, and in doing so manages to both sympathize far too much with abusers and dismiss far too much their victims. Very clear implication being that she is beyond saving, that her rape has made her irreparably broken, and death is the only way out. Grasping at subject matter it has neither the education nor maturity to handle. Its persistence with hurtful portrayals of mental illness that has seemingly gotten worse over time could once be written off as amateur hour tomfoolery, but has increasingly come off as outright malicious. Before we get to the game's intellectually insulting pre-order bonuses and expensive edition content, because of course they fucking did, let's get cracking with my own thoughts about the wealth of footage Konami showed, because my thoughts are not all negative. Yes, I might actually have some good things to say. Not many. But some. Is it just me, or does Remake James Sunderland look a vague bit like Laura Dern? It really is just me, isn't it? Anyway, the good stuff. Unsurprisingly, it looks really nice, and I'm not saying that as a setup to mention how Bloober is great at the surface level aesthetic and style over substance. They really have made the town of Silent Hill look fucking great, and the chance to explore such a perfectly moody, beautifully bleak, contemporary representation of the town that takes does a great deal to make me want to play it. Then again, are we surprised by that? Bloober is great at the surface level aesthetic and style over substance after all. The sound design is really promising, with the legendary series composer Akira Yamaoka back on board, his stock having not completely tanked after his inexplicable involvement with Stray Souls. The great animation and creepy sound effects have turned around my initial opinion on the remade nurse monsters. Previously, I've been put off entirely by the overly detailed, properly clothed nurses, much as I prefer how the original monsters looked like they were trying to approximate human features and clothing with their sick, nasty flesh. Seeing them in motion, however, with their juddering Jacob's Ladder heads, stumbling attacks, and horribly squeaky noises, has altered my opinion. I still prefer the older bubbleheads, but these are fucking cool versions in their own right. As far as Bloober getting its Bloober stink all over things, so far that assurance of faithfulness appears to be holding true for the most part so far. It's not one-to-one by any means, understandably so, especially as seen with the way James's first combat encounter is shown in the gameplay footage, but it's promising that they're confirmed to have kept such charmingly cringy lines like,
"Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago."
So yeah, that's nice. Right! On to the shitty stuff. As much as my opinion on the nurses has changed, what the fuck is this thing? It seems that since Bloober can't fuck up the writing as much as it likes, it'll take its trademark lack of subtlety to the art direction instead. The patient demons in Silent Hill 2 are great. They're obscure but familiar, vague yet evocative, staggering lumps of sick skin sculpted in the mocking approximation of a leggy woman trapped in a straitjacket. While they themselves are clumsy aberrations, their thematic design is downright elegant. This is Herman Munster's scrotum. Again, the idea of a creature as a fleshy facsimile has been thrown out the window, replaced with scars and zippers, just in case you didn't fucking get it in the 23 years since Silent Hill 2 came out. Holy fuck. Silent Hill 2 is 23 years old. Holy fuck, it's old. Holy fuck, I'm old. Far too old to be angry about remakes of computer games. Still, I've started, so I'll finish. At this point, I dread to think how the more overtly sexual monsters are going to be handled. How is the team that once suggested trauma victims ought to kill themselves and nonces deserve sympathy going to render something like the abstract daddy, or portray that scene with Pyramid Head? I'm imagining it will be lurid, sensational, and pathetic, but perhaps it's not fair to prejudge something based on the entirety of the developer's previous output. Maybe this time they'll handle sensitive themes well. Oh, never mind. James is wearing a funny dog head referencing a joke secret ending because memes! That's not gonna look fucking terrible when juxtaposed against Angela reliving the horrors of her sexual assault, but like I said, we'll get to the game's triple anus. Huh. Over 10 years of doing this shit, and I don't think I've ever used triple anus as a disparaging rectal pun.
Actually, funny story, this is actually not the first time we've used this particular plural poop shoot pun. See, I actually got this footage from the Why Crazy Taxi Needs to Shut Up a Pacific Drive episode from 3 months ago.
Well, bugger me. Anyway, it's funny how their re-envisioning suggests a fear that we might not get it, because when it comes to missing the point, they're the experts. Silent Hill 2's monsters, more than any other in the series, are dredged from the murkiest depths of their unwitting creators' subconscious. They're poorly defined, they're the shape of what lurks in the mind's dark basements, because that's what unprocessed trauma becomes. A hostile creature made of visceral feeling. Something familiar but twisted beyond reasonable recognition and so very, very wrong. This is a Slaneshi real doll. Speaking of which, it's time to bury ourselves deep into Konami's triple anus. If you pre-order Silent Hill 2 Remake, you get a Mirror the Dog mask. Because of course you do. Of course, there are pre-order bonuses incentivizing players to support a corporate obsession with an archaic metric that only they fucking care about. Of course, a modern remake contrasts the original with desperate and tacky monetization to serve as a sad reminder that the state of modern video games is depressing and completely robbed of fucking dignity. And of course, it completely undermines the whole fucking point of the thing. I'm not the first to point out the borderline offensive contrast between Silent Hill 2's themes and a guilt-ridden widower wearing fucking memes on his head. In fact, seeing a tweet depicting Angela Orozco's haunting final scene with James in his stupid dog helmet is how I found out about the pre-order bonuses in the first place. I'm not the first to point it out because it's a fucking good point. Silent Hill 2 delves deep into subject matter that includes but is not limited to terminal illness, child abuse, rape and other sexual trauma, trauma in general, and suicide. It's my favourite game next to Bloodborne for a reason, because it's cruel, morbid, angst-ridden and all the better for it. Its thematic resonance and carefully paced atmosphere of creeping dread is the darkly beautiful difference between horror and psychological horror. It's one of the most mature and considered horror games in video games, and for some people who play this, perhaps for the first time even, all that brilliance will be viewed through the lens of the world's least convincing furry. It's like, imagine if Schindler had a boglin for a head, or if We Need to Talk About Kevin featured a cartoon alien constantly dancing in the background, intermittently farting. It speaks friggin' volumes about how the artistic merit of video games is so disrespected in their own fucking medium that those producing them feel it's okay to turn even the most serious of experiences into a complete fucking joke. At the very least, this does the absolute opposite of convincing me Bloober Team can handle Silent Hill 2 with the sensitivity and tact it deserves. Konami, the fucks, have basically said it doesn't matter, traded in the game's dignity for the sake of the marketing department. The contempt is oozing off of it. This looks like a vanilla polyp gate-crashing a kink meat. But Stephanie, you fucking whore! I hear you scream. Silent Hill 2 had the silly dog ending in the first place, and Silent Hill 3 had comedy costumes and joke weapons! Oh, you poor sad gits. Yes, Silent Hill and Silliness are not strangers, but there are crucial differences. Most importantly, the comical aspects of Silent Hill 2 are relegated to New Game Plus. Even the secret endings are locked off until at least a second pass. They represent, in fact, a time when cool costumes and items were secrets and rewards in the base game, rather than premium content carved out and price tagged. You can start Silent Hill 2 Remake fresh and friggin' puncture its atmosphere, and if players have the dog head, they'll feel the pressure to use it because, well, they bought it. This is something I noticed with the criminally overlooked recent reboot of Alone in the Dark, which also allowed you to undermine the mood, with skins recreating the polygonal character models from the 1992 original. It's cute, but it fucks up whatever spookiness the game's going for. Would have been great as a reward in New Game Plus, which it would have been back before game publishers decided it was okay for all video games to be a joke. Inappropriate character skins as premium content is a bullshit racket to begin with. If they don't actually fit the tone of the game, they're not something a player will want to wear for the whole experience if they actually care about the experience as intended. But if they paid for a deluxe edition to get it, the buyer's remorse might compel them to keep it on. That's what happens. To buy a silly skin for certain games is to buy a dilemma between enjoying the game as it's meant to be enjoyed and trying to enjoy the game as a glorified piss take. We recently talked about the sheer scam that is deluxe edition and pre-order costumes in general. It's a good episode, made all the more poignant in the face of, well, this face. It would have been really fun if Konami had kept the dog secret a second time. Just don't mention it, let players wonder if the legendary dog ending is even in the remake, only to surprise and delight those players who fought their way to it, or at least waited to find out from the players who did. We won't have that now. They blew their canine load. The dog's already in it. If anything, all they've done is make a costume out of a fucking spoiler. They couldn't wait to spoil it. Video game publishers have no restraint, no patience. We don't get many cool surprises anymore. Not when there are trailers in need of hype moments and DLC in need of selling. OG Silent Hill 2 earned the silliness that's in there. The reason the dog and UFO endings are so iconic to begin with is because they're surprising Easter eggs that contrast the morbidity of the original story. The original complete story that you've gotten to experience properly the first time around. That's an important part of the joke. It's because you experience the entire story with all its seriousness and horrific twists that the gag of a dog controlling everything lands so fucking well. It's almost as if context fucking matters. Oh yes, that's right. We're talking about my favourite buzzword of late again. We are currently losing the battle for context. Right now, people are resisting my correct opinion when I say that things like multiversus represent a dangerous decontextualization of our media that will see meaningful art turned into sanitized brand opportunities across the board, robbed of their history, and the very things that make iconic characters iconic in the first place. People disagree because right now they're drunk on nostalgia, swayed by shrewdly premeditated marketing that's conditioning a generation to be hyped on one-scene moments and increasingly forced crossovers. If you disagree with me now though, don't worry. This is a temporary condition and it will pass. I won't even need to convince you. Warner Brothers' lack of restraint and exhausting market saturation will drive you into my arms, given time. As we hurtle towards the inevitable end of a series that's often been protested only to be agreed with in later times, the Cassandra of video games has chosen the battle for context as her hill to die on. Perhaps more than microtransactions, loot boxes, NFTs and AI, decontextualization represents something deeply dangerous to the media we used to enjoy but now consume. I'd argue decontextualization makes all those other horrid things all the easier to perpetuate, especially when it comes to the tech bro fads explicitly designed to eliminate context and cut artists out of the artistic process as much as possible. Just as Warner Brothers sees no snarling incongruity in giving a gang of violent rapists front row tickets to the Space Jam, so too does Konami find nothing problematic with offering clown comicry as a pre-order bonus for its game about suicide and sex abuse. It's pathetic. A pathetic indictment on the video game industry and its inability to understand the importance of its own medium. We've already confirmed that the modern Silent Hill series thinks accurate portrayals of trauma involve maternal caricatures screaming about their haunted pussies, so really what hope do we have? I mean, Konami took one look at the reckless, offensive and above all amateur hour representations of trauma and mental illness in Blair Witch and the Medium and thought the Haxu Maiden would be perfect for Silent Hill 2. So what hope does one of the most adult and affecting horror series in history actually have? This looks like Zippy from Rainbow fucked Sloth out of the Goonies and gave birth to an actual shit. Oh, it's fallen. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, sorry. I enjoyed it. Sort of. Anyway, Silent Hill 2 Remake might still be good. I'm not going to write it off entirely, I'm just going to write off the bits I've seen. A lot of them anyway. You know, I've gone at length on about Bloober Team and my lack of respect for the work they have done, but maybe they'll pull it out. Maybe that faithfulness will come through. Maybe they won't fuck it up. But I'm not going to hold out too much hope. Because even if we cut aside the Bloober factor, as the pre-order bonuses and the deluxe edition shit has demonstrated, Konami is still involved. Konami is Konami, and Konami is the worst. Fuck Konami. And thank God for me.